Please subscribe to this channel and support us so we can post new sci-fi stories every day. Your support keeps us going. The crystalline arches of the Galactic Academy combat arena stretched impossibly high, their surfaces reflecting the nervous chittering of 100 different species. Banners from across the galaxy hung over the assembled cadets, each representing a civilization that had clawed its way to the stars through conquest or cunning. Today, something was different. Electric tension replaced the usual pre-combat bravado. "The human won't last a week here," hissed a Trakari cadet, serpentine tongue flicking nervously. "I heard they're from a death world," another replied, mandibles clicking. "Their whole planet is supposedly trying to kill them." Despite the rumors about this strange new species, none truly understood what they were about to witness. Instructor Vatar dominated the arena's center, 3 meters of scarred chitinous exoskeleton and compound eyes that evaluated cadets like prey. "Today's examination will separate warriors from pretenders," he announced, his voice echoing like thunder. "Survival is about understanding your place in the natural order." The massive cage doors groaned open, and from the shadows emerged a Deathworld Beast, 3 meters of corded muscle and razor-sharp claws. Its armor-like hide gleaming black under harsh lights. Eyes burned with predator intelligence, and when it moved, it did so with fluid grace that spoke of never knowing fear. Saliva dripped from forearm-length fangs, its breathing like distant thunder. The alien cadets recoiled as evolutionary programming screamed warnings. Mandibles clicked in terror, scales rippled with fear, and several stepped backward. This wasn't training, this was a death sentence with academic credentials. The creature's presence pressed down like a physical weight, reminding everyone of their place in the food chain. But in the midst of this primal chaos, one figure remained perfectly still. Elias Ward, the lone human among the galactic elite, stood with his hands in his pockets and something that looked suspiciously like amusement playing across his features. Where others saw death incarnate, he tilted his head with the curious expression of someone encountering an interesting puzzle. His complete lack of appropriate fear responses sent a different kind of chill through the watching aliens, the uncomfortable realization that perhaps they didn't understand this new species as well as they'd assumed. The Deathworld Beast fixed its burning gaze on the nearest cadet, a proud Krillian whose family had conquered 3 star systems before breakfast. The creature's growl built from somewhere deep in its chest, a sound that spoke of ancient hungers and the kind of violence that preceded civilization by several geological epochs. Its muscles bunched like loaded springs, and every alien in the arena knew they were about to witness their first casualty of the semester. The natural order was about to reassert itself with extreme prejudice, and there was nothing any of them could do to stop it. Then, Elias Ward did something that would be discussed in xenobiology classes for the next century. He crouched down, extended his hand palm up, and made soft clicking sounds with his tongue. "Come here, buddy," he said in the kind of voice usually reserved for coaxing shy animals out of hiding places. "Let's see what you're all about." The complete absence of fear in his voice was so startling that even the beast paused, its ancient predator programming suddenly encountering a data point it had no evolutionary framework for processing. The arena fell silent except for the creature's breathing and the distant hum of the Academy's life support systems. Alien cadets watched in horrified fascination as their newest classmate appeared to be attempting diplomatic relations with something that existed solely to convert living tissue into corpses. The beast's head tilted, mirroring Elias's earlier gesture, and for a moment the 2 apex predators regarded each other with mutual curiosity. It was a tableau that would have made evolutionary biologists weep if any of them had been brave enough to witness it in person. Elias moved closer, his movements slow and deliberate, speaking in the kind of soothing tones that had successfully calmed everything from spooked horses to angry bears back on Earth. "That's it, easy does it," he murmured, completely ignoring the fact that the thing he was approaching could have bisected him with a casual swipe of its claws. "You're just a big scary kitty, aren't you?" The casual use of diminutive terminology to describe a creature that represented the concentrated nightmare of an entire galaxy sent fresh waves of disbelief through the watching crowd. When Elias's fingers made contact with the beast's jaw, touching the spot just behind where its massive fangs emerged from armored gums, every alien in the arena simultaneously held their breath. This was the moment of truth. Either their human colleague was about to be converted into component atoms, or something unprecedented was about to occur. The beast's eyes widened, its pupils dilating as Elias found the exact pressure point that transformed its fearsome growl into something entirely different. The sound that emerged was unmistakably a purr, albeit one that vibrated through the arena's superstructure and caused loose debris to rain from the ceiling. The reaction was immediate and cacophonous. Alien cadets erupted in disbelief, their voices creating a symphony of confusion that ranged from chittering panic to bewildered awe. "It will tear his arm off," screamed a Zephyrian, whose own arm analogues were currently wrapped protectively around his torso. "This is impossible," declared a hegemony officer, whose species had built their entire civilization around the concept of dominance through superior firepower. The instructor's compound eyes reflected nothing but pure incomprehension as his carefully planned lesson in natural selection was systematically dismantled by what appeared to be aggressive friendship. Elias continued his ministrations, completely oblivious to the chaos his actions were causing. "Good kitten," he said approvingly, as if he were praising a well-behaved house cat rather than a creature that represented 3 billion years of evolutionary optimization for lethality. The beast's purring intensified, and to the absolute horror of everyone watching, it began to lean into the human's touch like an oversized pet seeking affection. Its massive claws, which could have carved through battleship armor, remained carefully sheathed as it discovered the novel sensation of voluntary physical contact that didn't involve pain or predation. The beast's behavior became increasingly domestic with each passing moment, much to the mounting distress of everyone who thought they understood how the universe worked. It rolled over with surprising grace for something the size of a small spacecraft, exposing its armored belly in a gesture of trust that would have been touching if it hadn't been absolutely terrifying. Elias took this development in stride, crouching down to provide what he apparently considered an adequate belly rub. "Where's the good spot, huh?" he asked conversationally, as if the creature might actually provide verbal directions to optimal scratching locations. The beast's massive tail began to thump against the arena floor with enough force to send vibrations through the building's foundation. Each impact created small clouds of dust and the occasional crack in the supposedly indestructible training surface. To any reasonable observer, this should have been an ominous sign of impending violence. Instead, it was unmistakably the same tail-wagging behavior exhibited by happy dogs across countless worlds. The cognitive dissonance was so severe that several cadets began making small whimpering sounds as their worldviews underwent involuntary reconstruction. Instructor Vater's mandibles clattered in a display of emotions for which his species had no adequate words. In his 40 years of military instruction, he had never encountered a situation that required him to explain why a planet-killing predator was behaving like someone's beloved pet. His carefully planned demonstration of natural selection and survival instincts had somehow transformed into what appeared to be an impromptu petting zoo. The creature that had personally eliminated his 3 best warriors in previous tests was currently making the same contented sounds his own larvae made when fed particularly nutritious prey. "How did you do that, human?" Vater demanded, his voice carrying the desperation of someone whose entire professional identity was being systematically dismantled by aggressive coddles. The question echoed through the arena, and every alien present leaned forward to hear the answer. Surely there was some advanced technology involved, some psionic manipulation or sophisticated chemical intervention that could explain this impossible scene. The alternative, that humans possessed some innate ability to transform galaxy-class threats into oversized housepits, was simply too disturbing to contemplate. Elias looked up from where he was scratching behind the creature's ears, which had somehow become even larger and more dangerous looking when the beast was happy. "Back on Earth, we domesticated worse," he said with the casual tone of someone discussing weekend hobbies. "Wolves, big cats, bears, even managed to make friends with a few things that could kill us just by looking at us wrong. It's all about reading body language and showing respect." He demonstrated by finding a particularly sensitive spot that made the creature's purring intensify to the point where nearby cadets had to steady themselves against the vibrations. The casual mention of humans apparently treating their planet's apex predators as potential companions sent fresh waves of horror through the assembled aliens. Mental images of Deathworlds where the dominant species casually befriended things that should have eaten them created a kind of existential vertigo that left many cadets questioning their basic understanding of how evolution was supposed to work. If humans could domesticate the things that were trying to kill them, What did that say about human survival strategies? More importantly, what did it say about their chances of surviving contact with humanity? A series of flashback images flickered through Alien Mind's intelligence reports about Earth's ecosystem. Humans sharing territory with tigers and lions, treating them not as enemies but as wildlife to be conserved. The growing realization that this promising new Academy addition might represent something far more terrifying than any conventional military threat, the Deathworld Beast, blissfully unaware that it was participating in a fundamental challenge to galactic civilization's understanding of proper predator-prey relationships, continued to enjoy what was apparently the first positive physical contact of its entire existence. Its massive head rested in Elias's lap, with the trust of a creature that had found something it had never known it was missing. The human continued his gentle ministrations, occasionally murmuring encouragement in the same tone parents used with beloved children. "That creature has personally slain my 3 best warriors," Vatar protested, his voice carrying the desperation of someone watching his entire curriculum being invalidated by what appeared to be interspecies friendship. "It is a perfect killing machine, bred for destruction." His protests fell on deaf ears, as the supposed killing machine in question made soft huffing sounds that were unmistakably expressions of contentment. The instructor's worldview, carefully constructed over decades of military experience, was crumbling in real. Elias glanced up with the patient expression of someone explaining something obvious to a particularly slow student. "Maybe they never tried being nice," he suggested, as if the concept of treating dangerous things with kindness was so basic that he was genuinely surprised. No one had thought of it before. "Back home, we learned that most things that seem aggressive are usually just scared or defensive. Give them space, show them respect, and half the time they'll surprise you." He demonstrated by gently rubbing the creature's snout, which resulted in more purring and what appeared to be an attempt at nuzzling. The crowd struggled to process what they were witnessing, their minds ping-ponging between terror and disbelief as they watched their most fundamental assumptions about survival being systematically dismantled by aggressive compassion. Alien cadets, who had spent their entire lives learning to kill or be killed, were forced to confront the possibility that there might be a third option, one that involved scratching things behind the ears until they became friendly. Finally, Instructor Vatar made the executive decision that his lesson plan had been thoroughly sabotaged by unprecedented developments in interspecies relations. "The examination is concluded," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of someone who would be spending the next several hours revising his understanding of basic combat theory. The Deathworld Beast, however, showed no inclination to return to its containment area. It had apparently decided that staying close to the source of this revolutionary new experience called affection was far more appealing than returning to whatever lonely existence it had previously endured. "Guess I have a new roommate," Elias said cheerfully, as the creature settled more comfortably against him, its massive bulk somehow managing to convey the same devotion typically associated with loyal pets. The logistics of housing a Deathworld Beast in student accommodation were complex, but the creature's obvious attachment to its new human friend made separation seem both impractical and unnecessarily cruel. Besides, none of the Academy staff were particularly eager to attempt forcible removal of something that had just discovered the concept of voluntary friendship. As the arena slowly emptied, alien cadets departed with expressions ranging from shell-shocked bewilderment to dawning respect. Conversations erupted in a dozen languages as they tried to process what they had witnessed and what it meant for their understanding of both humans and the universe in general. "Is it his pet?" wondered a Cassian warrior whose own species had never successfully domesticated anything more dangerous than a particularly aggressive fruit. "Or his ally," the instructor muttered, watching as the supposedly unstoppable killing machine rolled over again in hopes of receiving additional belly rubs. The final image that burned itself into alien memory was Elias laughing as the Deathworld Beast attempted to lick his face with a tongue roughly the size of a dinner plate. "Told you, Kitten," he said, his voice carrying the fond exasperation of every pet owner who had ever tried to explain that their beloved companion was, technically speaking, a dangerous animal. The creature's tail continued its rhythmic thumping, and its purrs had settled into a contented rumble that seemed to emanate from the very foundations of the building. As the arena lights dimmed and the academy settled into its evening routine, word spread through the dormitories and training halls like wildfire. Humans, it seemed, were different. not just in their biology or their technology or their curious tendency to pack bond with their own starships, but in some fundamental way that challenged every assumption the galaxy had made about survival, strength, and the natural order of things. They were a species that had apparently looked at their planet's most dangerous predators and decided that the appropriate response was not fear or flight, but friendship and belly rubs. In the weeks that followed, human enrollment applications increased by 3,000%. Military strategists furiously revised assessments of human combat doctrine, accounting for humanity's ability to turn enemies into allies through kindness. Xenobiologists demanded funding for studies into the human pacification effect, while philosophers debated whether humanity represented evolution's first survival strategy based on aggressive kindness. The Deathworld Beast, meanwhile, adapted to academy life with surprising ease. It attended Elias's classes, waited patiently outside dining halls, and developed a reputation for being startlingly well-behaved, for something that could technically qualify as a weapon of mass destruction. Other cadets learned to navigate around the pair with the careful respect accorded to any natural force that could reshape local reality through unpredictable applications of either violence or affection. Late at night, when the academy settled into the quiet hum of dormant training systems and sleeping students, Elias would sit in the observation deck overlooking the arena, his massive companion's head resting across his lap like a furry mountain range. He would scratch behind its ears and listen to its contented purring, occasionally sharing bits of his rations with a creature that had previously subsisted entirely on a diet of warriors and fear. To him, it wasn't particularly remarkable, just another example of what happened when you treated living things with patience and respect, instead of assuming they existed solely to cause problems. The galaxy was still struggling to adjust. Intelligence reports filtered back to homeworlds describing humans who could negotiate with forces of nature, who treated apex predators as potential friends. Military commanders faced unprecedented scenarios. What do you do when the enemy's greatest strength isn't their weapons, but their alarming tendency to turn your weapons into allies? The answer was to be very careful about what you classified as an enemy. If humanity had taught the galaxy anything, it was that the line between terrifying threat and beloved companion was thinner than anyone had imagined. Sometimes, all it took was someone brave enough to extend their hand and say, "Come here, buddy. Let's be friends." In the end, the Academy's most important lesson wasn't about combat or survival strategies. It was about the revolutionary concept that sometimes the most effective weapon was simply the willingness to scratch something behind the ears and call it Kitten. The human had looked at a perfect killing machine and seen a potential friend. The killing machine had discovered that ear scratches were more enjoyable than warrior elimination, and the galaxy learned they had been thinking about survival all wrong in a universe of conquest and competition. Humanity had found the cheat code. Be nice to things, and they might be nice back. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and support us so we can post new videos every day. Your support means the world.